Hi there. This is Debbie Davis for Outlier Legal, and we're so happy that you guys could have joined us today on a very special day. I have all these experts lined up to talk to you, and what we're talking about today is retiring in Costa Rica, something that's very important to many of us here on the call today, and it's the path to Pensionado residency. You know, we've talked in the past with some of our other webinars on different ways to come to Costa Rica, and certainly you can retire in any number of ways, but this is the Pensionado residency, which we will go over today and talk all about, so you know all the ins and outs and how that works. I have some special guests today. I want to first introduce Alfredo Abrego. Many of you have seen Alfredo before. He's starting to be a regular on these webinars, aren't you, Alfredo?
Yes, thank you, Debbie, and well, thank you everybody who actually joined to this webinar. Hopefully, we can clear all of your doubts regarding the pensionado path here in Costa Rica.
Yes, and Alfredo, as you may remember, is our immigration team manager. And the next person I want to introduce is Melissa Espinoza. Melissa is the lead immigration client services manager, and she's here today. Hi, Melissa. Thanks so much for coming. It was great of you to come. People haven't seen you or met you before.
Yes, hello, Debbie, and well, hello, everyone that has joined the webinar today. It is a pleasure for me be here today and being able to share some of our knowledge pertaining the pensionado, the retired category.
Okay. Oh, and Alfredo, I meant to ask you, you know, many people don't really, haven't been to the office and they only talk to the person who's helping them with their case, and that when, they become a client and the attorney. How many people do we have now helping people, do their residency process in Costa Rica and Panama all together?
How many people we have in Panama working?
Both Costa Rica and in Panama working on immigration.
Well, at least the Costa Rica team, I could say it's about from 18, 19 people around. And right now in Panama, we are just starting, so we have just a couple of employees there.
But but a lot's going on in Panama right now. If anyone here that's on the webinar is also interested in Panama, shoot us an email and we'll get some information to you about that as well. But I wanted to ask you that, Alfredo, because I don't think that sometimes people realize how many people are actually working on immigration at the office to help them. So I think it's good for folks to know. We also have on the call today two of our service coordinators in the immigration department. One is Stephen Cabello, and the other one is Maria Vasquez. And so they're going to be here to answer some of your questions. And the way we're going to handle that, a little bit of housekeeping, is you'll see that there's a Q&A section. We're not going to do the raise a hand or the chat portion because it gets kind of distracting. But if anyone on the call has a question that they want answered that we haven't either gotten to or you're not sure if we're going to answer, just throw it there in the question and answer, and we'll make sure that you get an answer as quick as we can, depending on how many people are online asking the questions. I guess the first thing I wanted to ask everyone on the call, just as a little bit of information about everybody, is, are you currently living in Costa Rica? Or are you someone that's not quite made the plunge to move here yet? There's a poll you'll see on the left of your screen. Oh, and we see we have quite a few people already living in Costa Rica. That's fabulous. I know for myself, I'm not in Costa Rica full time, but I certainly we consider it our second home, and love it there. And we too did the Pensionado residency category that you're going to learn more about today. So Alfredo, I thought I'd start with you and ask you some questions. If you could kind of give everybody a little bit of a heads up, like who really should apply for the Pensionado residency category? I mean, who is that really for?
Well, actually, for the pensionado, most of people would think that are only those who actually have retired already. They already worked all their lives and they just want to come and live here in a peaceful way, basically near to the beach or into the mountain here in Costa Rica, because that's a benefit of Costa Rica. We have actually both sides. So most of the people would be basically for retired people. However, there is also a possibility. Mostly this we have, or at least the clients that we have had here, is people who have who were in the military, mostly from United States. They have some kind of disability. They were basically due to going to the war and stuff. So they are already retired, or they are receiving a pension from the VA, if I am not wrong. That's the name.
That's right.
So yeah, those people can also be joining as the pensionado lists or category. So basically, it's anyone who actually receive a pension. Right now, it actually doesn't require any kind of age itself. It's just a matter of receiving a pension.
I was going to ask you that. It didn't sound to me like it was really age dependent, that anyone who meets the requirements really of the income is where it is with the pensionado, correct? It's the income requirement for the month.
Exactly. It's the income and the pension thing, not actually the age.
Right. And so what is the current amount, minimum amount that someone has to make before that they can be considered for the pensionado category?
Yeah, the minimum amount to apply is $1,000.
And that's US, right?
In the US, yes, US
Right.
dollars.
So it doesn't matter where in the world they live, that's going to be calculated as to the exchange rate with the dollar to come up to that threshold, right?
Right, exactly. You need to do the exchange depending on if you receive your pension in euros, colones, whatever currency you actually receive the pension, you need to do the exchange to US dollars.
Okay, perfect. And you mentioned, I think, a little bit about it being a lifetime award. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that means? Because I think that really confuses some people with what they really need for that.
Well, regarding the lifetime, it's mostly like the exact wording that we need in the pension letter. So basically, it doesn't have to be exactly just lifetime. It can be either a lifetime until death, for life, anything that makes or that can say immigration that you are going to receive that until the last moment of your life. So that is a very important thing, because one of the basically one of the most things or topics that we have or that we receive rejections from immigration is because the pension letter doesn't have the actual language on it. So this is very important. You need to make sure that your pension letter says either that you're going to receive those 1,000, or it can be more dollars, either for life until death, life for lifetime, whatever it is that makes immigration understands that you will be receiving until your last day, basically.
Okay. And is that something that a person that, once they've retained Outlier and we're working on their case, that they can get those letters so that you can look at those ahead of time and make sure that the language is what immigration needs?
Yes, actually, well, there is a very easy way, at least. I'm going to talk just regarding the United States citizens. If you receive a pension from the Social Security, there is a way that you can actually, through a link of the U.S. Embassy here in Costa Rica, you can just fill a form, and basically you can request a pension letter from them. This is a very important thing. This pension letter from the U.S. Embassy actually doesn't have the exact wording that immigration requests, but the U.S. Embassy has some kind of agreement with immigration so that they can actually accept these letters, since they are coming directly from the U.S. Embassy here in Costa Rica.
Right. And what people can do with that is, if you go on the U.S. Embassy's website, the one in Costa Rica, it has to be the one in Costa Rica, there's actually a link right there for people to, apply for that form. Because we did that. I have some experience with that. And when the form comes, the great thing is it's also already in Spanish. So that's kind of nice that it's already translated, and it will have the amount right on there. And I know sometimes I will recommend to people to get that letter ahead of time, because there's some people that are kind of confused about exactly what their benefit is. And so that's helpful to get that, I think, anytime, but then you can look at that. And then I think for other countries, in Canada, Canadians have to go through Revenue Canada to request. They have several different types of retirement than pensions rather than we do here in the U.S. And so if you're listening to this call and you're Canadian, I know that you know everything about that, but you will have to get that information from them as well. And then once you get that, Alfredo, and it's translated and everything, then that's part of what goes to the package that goes into immigration for the application. Is that right?
Yes, that's actually the main requirement for the pensionados, that pension letter. So that should go and be filed within the rest of the request.
Okay. Now, what happens if if you have one person, right, and they're just going to apply themselves, and that's kind of easy, right? They check the box, they make the $1,000, and they do the rest of the process fine. But what should people be thinking about if they have a dependent, if they're married and have a spouse? We get that question a lot. What should they be doing to figure out like who should be the primary, or does it matter? Could you go through that process a little bit if you're married or you have a dependent?
Absolutely. Well, the main thing here is with the $1,000 of pension that you actually receive, you can actually apply with your spouse and your children who are under 25 years old, or if they are above 25 years old, they need to have some kind of disability that it has to be medically certified. So that's an important point. But yeah, we have a lot of clients that actually both of them, it's a couple, a retired couple. So both of them receive pension from the social. However, let's say the wife received $12,000 of pension, but the husband received only $1,000. So in this case, we always recommend to use the lowest pension. Why? This is just because with the same pension, you can both apply, and this lower amount will actually help you at the time you need to register into Caja. So you will need to pay above or based on the $1,000 pension and not under the $12,000 or the $1,200 pension. So basically, it is always good to use the lowest amount of, if you have two pensions, always use the lowest so that you can actually pay less into Caja.
So as long as the letter that you get from, wherever your pension is or your retirement or wherever in the world that comes from, as long as it says $1,000 without going under, then that person should be, whoever's closest to that number should be the primary, and then the other one be the dependent. Now, I wanted to ask you just a little bit more about, because we do have this come up quite a bit with people who have children that are over 25 and do have a disability. What is immigration looking for to determine that they can come in under the primary pensionado in that case?
Yeah, basically the main requirement for them would be to have a medical certification that it will explains basically which is the disability that the person has. And just with that medical certification, basically they can actually apply. Okay,
so can you tell me a little bit more about that? It's kind of curious to me. So that's going to be medical records. Let's say the person's from the US, and so that's going to be medical records from their doctor here in the US, which then certification is going to have to translate it. And then is immigration actually going to have another doctor look at it, or do they have some sort of list of automatic approval types for disabilities?
No, they're actually what they actually don't require for a doctor in Costa Rica to review this medical records, because the doctor itself is putting his name and his basically ID number, medical ID number, basically. So everyone can actually look for the doctor and see that he's an actual doctor. So they only request medical records explaining the disability, basically, and explaining that the person needs to be with their parents because he cannot live on their own.
Okay, so it's not like that they're looking for someone who, is not mobile, or they're looking for, it's just strictly that, they can't live on their own and they require to be under the care of their parents still, even though they're over 25. Is that right?
Exactly. That's the point.
Okay. Well, that's really good, because people have a lot of questions about that. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, it's so great to have you here, because you guys have all the answers to all the questions that expats have on these little nuanced areas. Is there any kind of reason why a wife and a husband would both want to be a primary applicant instead of having one of them as the dependent? Would that help them down the road? Is there a time it would? Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Well, to be honest, I would never recommend to actually apply on their own if they're going to apply at the same time. That's an important point. If they're going to apply at the same time, it would be better for both to apply together, so that they don't have to pay twice Caja, because if each one of them actually applies on their own, each one of them will need to pay the Caja fee, even though they're married and stuff. So that's a con, right? So the only thing mostly is if one of the, let's say the husband came first, he had a residency, he had the Pensionado residency starting on, I don't know, let's say 2019. So he already had the 3 years as being a temporary resident.
Okay.
And he wants to change his category to permanent. If the wife doesn't have the 3 years yet on the 2022, basically right now, when the husband is going to change his category, basically she won't be able to actually change to permanent or even renew her residency. So basically that would be the only thing that I could actually imagine for each one of them actually applying on their own, is so that both residencies are not linked in order to actually do the change of category to permanent.
Okay. And does that affect anything? Because sometimes I know that people will apply at the same time, but then their approvals might not be on the same day. So will that also affect that, or is it not so much about the approval, it's more about the application date?
No, it's actually regarding the approval, or actually having the Dimex when the clock actually starts for the 3 years. But if they actually apply on the same time, the time difference between both, if they are both file completed, let's say they're both file completed, the time difference between each other, it shouldn't be more than 1 or 2 months, to be honest.
Oh, I see.
So, yeah, so at least the change of category thing, what I'm referring to is if they actually have a difference in years of from one residency was filed from another, or one residency was approved from another. Basically,
So
that's like the main reason.
Yes. So otherwise, it's kind of a negligible difference. So now, I think many people know, but I wanted to talk about it again, because it's the same as the other residency categories, right? Where that you get residency for 2 years, right? Then you reapply for 2 years, and then you can get permanent, correct?
Exactly. It's exactly the same path. Basically, pensionado, rentista, investors, and a lot of temporary residencies, they are good for 2 years. So they need to apply to renew it for another 2 years. And on the 3rd year, they can do the change of category to permanent.
Okay. So the question I wanted to ask you is, what if some unforeseen occurrence happens, and one of them, that the primary person dies while they're, in the temporary or in the permanent residency categories? What happens?
That's a big problem, because if the primary actually dies before the dependent actually have the 3 years to actually do the change of category, then that person won't be able to actually either renew nor change her category. However, let's say they both had their temporary residencies for the 2 years. They actually did the renewal and they have it for 4 years. So on the 3rd year, and the husband dies before the 3rd year, if the dependent already have the renewal up to another 2 years and did the renewal, on the third year, she can actually do the change of category. The only problem would be if she wasn't able to actually renew her residency before, her husband or wife actually died. The primary applicant died.
Okay. Yeah, I hate to kind of bring that sad note up, but the reality is a lot of people who are pensionados are retired, which, creates a certain age that we are. And that's something that you kind of have to kind of be thinking about. So, but on a little bit lighter note, I thought I would ask another polling question to kind of lighten the mood after that question. I'm curious if people on the call knew about the $1,000 threshold, that's really all they need, for themselves and essentially their entire family to be able to qualify for the Pensionado residency. I thought it would be interesting to know if people really, are aware of that, because it is quite a low threshold in many ways, because you get everybody in under that one number, which it will, as we'll talk about in a little bit, really helps with the costs down the road with your health care. One question, Alfredo, people ask us about is, what if they also own real estate, and they also would qualify for Pensionado? Would you recommend they do Pensionado, or do you recommend they do investor, or do you have a preference? What do you think about that?
If they can apply for either Pensionado or investor, I will always recommend to go with Pensionado, because actually the main requirement is much easier to get. It's much easier to actually have it reviewed, because at least regarding the investor category, all the investment documents that you need to actually file are a lot. So we can be talking around 4 or 5, depending if you actually have the property on your name, under your name, or under a corporation. It can vary depending on the amount of documents, but it is a lot of documents. It does cost a lot of money. So I will always go with the pensionados, because for me, the main requirement, that is the pension letter, is much easier to get than all the investment documents for the property.
Right. And for people who have real estate in Costa Rica, they're kind of aware of how many documents you have when you have real estate in Costa Rica. For people who don't, it is a lot easier, I think, if you just have to, get the Pensionado type documents, because as you were saying, that every time you renew, you're going to have to prove you still own that property, which means you're going to have to get all those documents again for the investor residency, for the renewal, and on also the permanent, right?
No, once you actually change to permanent residency, you no longer need to actually prove any of the main requirement for any category, neither the pension letter, nor the investment documents, nor the rentista letter. For permanent residency, you only need to do the government payments, take the picture, and get a new one. Basically, that's it.
Okay, so on the third year, when you're going to go from temporary to permanent, at that point, you don't have to give them documents again to prove that you still own the real estate?
No, that's no longer needed. Actually, to do the change of categories, basically filing a request in immigration, paying government fees, and waiting for the approval.
Okay. The other, we talked a little bit on one of our prior webinars about the digital nomad visa, which, people waited so long to learn about that. It's really has been quite the hot topic. I know you guys have gotten a lot of people asking about that. Can people apply for the digital nomad and then also be applying for their residency, so that, while they're waiting for their residency to be approved, they can have the digital nomad? I mean, if they have the income, if they have some of those requirements met.
No, they actually cannot do that because you can only have one open process at a time with the immigration department. So if you actually file something for Pensionado, and then maybe 6 months later you file for the digital nomad, immigration is going to issue a motion to action asking for clarification on which actually category you are going to apply for. So you need to choose just one category at a time and wait until the process ends so that you can actually apply for another.
Okay. And you can't do the digital nomad first. You can't do either one of them. Starting the other thing will stop the other process, right?
Right, exactly. You need to choose which category you want to apply and just go for it.
Okay, that's I just wanted to make sure, because a lot of people ask that question because people are looking, for a way to be able to drive and those things. Sorry, could you talk a little bit about where we are with the new law for the cars and that?
Well, yeah, basically that law, I don't know. I would say that it actually got lost, because the last thing we actually heard about was, I think it was maybe a couple of months or maybe 3 months ago, where immigration actually sent a public consultation regarding the ruling. However, to be honest, we actually reviewed it. It was a draft only, and it was very bad, to be honest. So each law firm, they sent this public consultation to the attorneys board here in Costa Rica, and so that all the attorneys could review it and send their thoughts. And I don't think that will be done soon. However, we have not heard anything back from immigration since then.
Do you have any thoughts with that, as far as I know some people think they should wait to apply until that's really lined out, or do you think it'll be, once it's in effect, it'll be retroactive? I mean, do you have any, thoughts on that, or anything you could tell people how to be prepared?
The only problem is that I can actually not say how it's going to be applied, because, well, to be honest, I don't know nothing regarding the law. The law was already, let's say, the law was approved. However, the ruling that says which is the step-by-step on how is actually the law going to be applied in the practice, that's what is missing. So I have no idea what they are going to actually do there, if they're going to do something like the digital nomad thing, where they actually release or erase some main things like the apostille and the documents and stuff. So that's what I do not know. And basically, at least taking the digital nomad ruling as a base right now, with this new law, I actually don't know what to expect here from immigration.
It's kind of a stay tuned, right? Just stay tuned, because it's been over a year, right, since that was passed, or
yes, I think that one was approved. If I am not wrong, it was like in September, October, if I am not wrong. But yeah, it was around this time from last year.
Right. So Melissa, I wanted to ask you some questions, if it's okay. And again, I thank you so much for being with us today and helping with this, because you work on this every day with all the things that are needed for people to be able to immigrate to Costa Rica. Alfredo touched a little bit about documents, and I know, documents, we had that webinar, back a week or so ago about the paper chase with the documents. Could you kind of just go over a little bit with the pensionado category? What do people need to be thinking about that they need for immigration?
Yes, well, for the pensionados and retired people that wants to apply for residency, immigration have in the law a series of requirements and a series of documents that the applicant must provide at the moment of the application. Besides the pension letter, as Alfredo was mentioned, which is the main requirement for this specific category, there is some other documents that are part of the principal, let's say, package for the application. And we can say that the first one is the birth certificate. And this document must be apostille or must be legalized, because every document that comes from abroad must include this this legal authorization from the country the document was issued. So immigration is really picky with these documents. If they are not coming with the specific apostille or legalization, the document will be rejected by immigration. They will raise the exigency to apostille or legalize the document. The other document will be a background check. No matter what country are you from, you will need to bring a background check to immigration. The background check needs to be a national background check. It cannot be a local background check, because we have received some people is bringing like a local police station document that will not be approved by immigration. It must be a national background check. For example, well, most of our clients are from Canada and from the United States. And the document, for example, the background check for the United States, which is a nationwide document. And for Canada, will it be the RCMP? For people from the United Kingdom will be an ACRO or ACRO. But every country has its different background check, because immigration will be interested to know if the person have a criminal record on it, because it is like a national security situation here for Costa Rica. Also, we have the marriage certificate. If the applicants are a couple, or if they bring children, this will be dependents. So basically, they need to prove the link they have to the principal applicant, which is for the spouse will be a marriage certificate, and for the children will be the birth certificate, to prove that they have a direct link to the principal applicant. Also, these documents, same as the birth certificate, the background check, and the marriage certificate, must be apostille, and these documents must be legalized.
Yes, sorry. I'm sorry. I just wanted to bring up, I was thinking when you were talking, is that for people who are here today, you want to go back and get on YouTube and watch our documents webinar, because it will really explain more about this apostille legalized process than what we're going to do here today, because I know that that's something that always comes up in people's minds. So I just thought I would bring that up for folks. So sorry, Melissa. I just wanted to bring that up.
No, that's okay. It's really important, especially because well, we are in a different country from ours, and sometimes we don't know what the law says to apply for residency in that country. So it is important that you bring this to our attention, that we have also a webinar in YouTube with information about the documents and being more specific, because indeed some people doesn't know what an apostille is or what a legalization is. So it is important, and well, given that we are the experts, we can give you a guidance of how, if you are going to procure these documents on your own, it will be a step-by-step of how you can procure this document back in your country, or if you can do it either from Costa Rica or in your country. Yeah. There is another document, and this is very important because most of the applicants forget about this document, and it's the name change document. As you know, well, most of you know that here in Costa Rica, when we marry to another person, women especially, we don't change our name. So it is important for immigration to have a name change document because they need to prove that the person in the passport is the same person of the birth certificate. So sometimes it doesn't match, because if you married, you change your name to your husband's name or your wife's name. So immigration doesn't understand why you bring a birth certificate with a different last name and why your passport have a different name. So they need to know the reason. So one of the documents to prove this is a name change document, which can be the marriage certificate. And also if you change your name just because you want it, not specifically because you married to someone, immigration will also need to see like a legal name change document that actually, if and Debbie, you can confirm this, you can go to the court in the US and request this document, because it gets complicated when you have a different name, because you change your name in high school, you wanted to be named differently, and suddenly you don't have a document to prove what, which authority grants you the permission to change your name. So immigration with this is really, really, really picky. So it is really important for you to take notes that if you change your name, you better have the documents to prove immigration that some authority grants you the permission to change your name. Otherwise, it will be a complication because this can put in jeopardy the application.
And I think to explain to people, because I think sometimes people are just thinking that we're being picky, and it isn't that. Immigration, and my understanding, and being and going through the process myself, they have a very somewhat linear route that they travel to approve these applications, and things have to be able to fit in the box. And when this name change, especially, it really affects more women generally than men, because in the US and other countries, we typically change our names when we get married and we don't think anything of it, and back then we changed everything, right? But when you go, and you're coming to another country, they don't know who you are, and they don't know that you used to be Mary Beth Jones when you were growing up, and now you married Richard Smith. And so they really have to be able to see the paper trail showing that. And so it can be, especially if there's more than one marriage, it can be arduous, I think, for people, and frustrating. And it also can be time consuming and expensive because you have to get copies of those documents, right? And they have to be apostilled or legalized. And sometimes I think, people can, depending on the county and the state you live in, there may be situations where you might just be better off to go change your name, especially legally, because some people have misspellings on their passports, or their middle name is spelled wrong on their passport, right? And so then they have a whole nother, lineage of problem proving, I always say you have to prove, I am who I am, that I was this person, now I'm this person, and now I'm this person. And I think it makes people frustrated, but it's super important. And as you're saying, immigration isn't going to prove you unless it checks the boxes and it fits the timeline, right? So you might as well get it done ahead of time. And one thing, Melissa, I wanted to bring up, and we talked about it during the documents webinar, is that we're really fortunate because we have a sister company, OLS Documents, who can help people procure these documents and make sure that they have the documents that they need, that they're in the right, type of shape that they need to be, and that they're in a situation where they can be accepted, where there's apostilled or legalized, or wherever, whatever country they're coming from, that has to happen. And I wanted to ask if the people on the call knew we had a sister company that can help with the documents, and they can do all the process or they can do part of the process. Sometimes people can maybe get their birth certificate, but it's many states, they're not in that state anymore, and it's really a hassle for them to get their marriage certificate. And so they'll ask OLS Documents to step in and help with that. And Canadian documents and other documents around the world also. So I think that once people become a client, the case managers talk to people to find out what documents they need. Is that right?
Yes, there is some exceptions. For example, I know that our sister company helps people with documents from Canada, from the US, from some very specific countries, because there are some that requires additional steps, and there are some countries that needs for a friend country to help when we cannot find like an embassy or a consulate. Very specific countries, but our documents sister company can assist you with the most common, which are from the US, from Canada, even for Germany, if I'm not wrong. But we can totally ask them to help us with the procurement of some of the documents and the legalization in the apostille.
Procuring documents is quite the art form, and it's complicated. And it's an interesting process. The other thing that can get complicated for folks, and I just wanted you to touch on it for a moment, is what should people be prepared for if they, they're going to get their FBI background check and they know that something could be on there. Are there some things that are just like, you're not going to get residency, some things that are not a problem? I mean, what should people be prepared for with the criminal background check?
Yes, well, people should be prepared. Well, everyone knows if they did something in the past. We don't judge for that, but sometimes this can be an obstacle to get the residency, especially if you have like a criminal record that is pretty serious in Costa Rica, such as a domestic violence or a minor abuse. Some things like that can put in jeopardy your application. There is 50% of guarantee that if you have some bad criminal records, you are not going to be eligible to obtain residency in Costa Rica. As I mentioned before, this is a matter of national security, even though because we have had some people saying, I'm not a threat to Costa Rica, or that was a mistake, or the case was dismissed. We don't judge. But immigration, they will have to see, they will have to analyze if you are considered a threat or not. This will not depend of the attorneys or the people helping you with the process. It will depend entirely from immigration and what they think about it. It is important, though, to know that the law states like a statute of limitation of 10 years. This means that records that are older than 10 years will not be taken into consideration at the moment of the analysis of the process. However, this is never, this cannot be a reality. This will be in paper, but reality is different because immigration can request to see your court documents, to see what happened with the record, even though that this was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Immigration have the discretion to request to see the court documents. Some criminal background, some background checks brings like a detail of what happened with that record, if the record was dismissed, or if it was some sort of like a penalty, or if the person was punished before that criminal record. But sometimes immigration will want to know what happened if the FBI is not clear enough or what happened with that charge. So it is important for the person that is applying to consider if you have records, you can expect some exigency from immigration regarding the records that you have. There are some records like the DUIs that are not that immigration will analyze and will approve, even if you have like a DUI, because that's not like a big criminal record. But if there is something serious there, well, immigration will raise an exigency.
And with what you were saying, they may want more information. And if they want more information, people need to be prepared for the fact that they're going to have to go back to the jurisdiction that that particular event happened and request a copy of the court file. And sometimes that can be a few pages, but if there was a trial, it could be many pages. And that all, most of that's going to have to be transcribed into Spanish, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Every document, actually, Debbie, every document that comes from abroad and it comes in a different language than Spanish, it must be translated to Spanish because immigration, well, they don't have English-speaking people there. So they will need to have every page translated. Every single word in a different language, it must be translated to Spanish.
Right, and that can get kind of expensive. One thing that I just thought of that I didn't think to ask you, I want to make sure people understand. I think they do. If you're applying as two people, you know, husband and wife, then you each have to have all these documents. And if you've got kids under 25 or disabled children, everyone has to have these documents, the birth certificates and all of that. So I just thought I'd mention that real quick. Could you tell people a little bit about, you know, once they become a client of Outlier, you know, what's the process? You know, people are really worried about how long it's going to take, what has to happen in the meantime, you know, when are they going to get approved? And could you talk about that just a little bit?
Sure. Well, the first thing you need to do is to sign the service agreement so we can start the process with you, because that's the indicator that you want our assistance. From that moment, when you sign the service agreement and we receive the notification that you signed the service agreement, we will assign an immigration service client coordinator to work with your case. This person basically will help you through the process, will guide you, and will do the things on your behalf. So you don't need to worry to go to immigration offices or calling immigration. We will do it on your behalf. After the immigration service client coordinator is assigned, this person will get in touch with you, and they will coordinate a call or a video conference meeting to explain the process, to explain expectations, timeframes, to respond all of your questions, all of your concerns, and also to schedule a meeting, because we will need an in-person meeting, because in order for us to act on your behalf, we will need authorization from your side. And that will be with a power of attorney. And this will allow us to do everything on your name about the process, about the application of the residency process. And yeah, basically the immigration service coordinator will be in contact with you along the process. And the process, well, it is important to know that the process, regardless the category, have like 3 different stages. The first one is the document procurement, and with this first stage, we don't have like a specific time frame, because this will depend of how much time could take the procurement of the documents. Depends on the country, depends on the states. But we have we have calculated from 2 to 3 or 4 months for this first stage. The second stage of the process, we call it the filing, which is the moment that we have all of the documents and we are ready to go to the immigration office and file all of your documents along with the application that you want to apply as pensionado. That's the filing stage. After the filing, we can start to count 90 days. By law, the immigration department have 90 days to issue a resolution. But again, this is only in paper. Reality is completely different, and especially from 2020, immigration is dragging a lot of backlog since COVID hit Costa Rica, because many people are aware that immigration offices were closed since March 2020, and they reopened on October and November of 2020. So they are dealing with a lot of backlog. Those 90 days, they never complete with those 90 days. Never, never, never. So after the filing, we start counting 90 days, but only if we file a complete application, because every time that we file additional documents, the clock starts again. So this means that if we file everything, but we were missing the background check, and we filed the background check 2 months after we did the filing, the time will not count. The time will start to count once we file the last document. So it is important for the people to know this, because sometimes people think, oh, immigration have 90 days to issue a resolution, I already filed it. But immigration doesn't think that way. They will try to delay the process as much as possible. So after the filing, in the law, immigration have 90 days to issue a resolution. Given that this is never a reality, we as a firm, we will do a follow-up on day 91 to ask immigration what's going on with the file. We will request an update to immigration. And after that, we know that immigration doesn't respond immediately. So we will need to do at least 3 follow-ups to receive a response from immigration. So basically, after the filing, we can expect to have a resolution in 6 or 9 months, sometimes even more if we didn't file a complete application, and if we file documents along, these 90 days, it could be more, it could be even 12 months. So once we receive the approval, we are going to the last part of the process, the 3rd stage, which is the registration in the Social Security system, the Caja. And also, after we register you in the Caja, we are going to be able to request an appointment to request your DMEX card, which is the residency ID card for the expats. And once we request the DMEX, you will receive in these documents in about 4 or 6 weeks. And that's it. That's basically the process. And in general, there is some other details, but this will depends of every specific case, because not every application is the same. There are some differences, and this will cause for some process to take less and for some process to take more.
Well, and I think it's really good for people to know that they're going to have somebody with them, the entire way. And I think if really people thought about it, immigration is not going to make a decision until they have, if you think about all these things that you need to have, that immigration is requesting. I always explain things to people like, it's like a bucket, right? You've got to put all the things in the bucket for the, to be able to have something complete, right? Well, if something's not in the bucket, no one's going to look at it because something important could not be in the bucket. What if there was, some sort of background check that, wasn't good, or maybe one of the documents wasn't good. So, I think in a way it's good that they really don't do that until it's complete, because if they did, they'd even be more behind because they would be constantly, right, checking these partial applications, or they would be denying people, or they would be giving you so many days to turn things in, and that would be, kind of chaotic. But I think it's great that there's someone every step of the way to help them. And for me, I also think it's wonderful because other than the waiting is the worst. I can attest to that. It's not a lot to do once you've got everything turned in, and sometimes it's hard to be patient, that I know, but really you sit back and, Outlier is kind of doing the rest. Alfredo, would you mind to just take a few minutes, because Melissa brought up the information about the Caja. And for those of you, if this is your first webinar or if you've been on several, I'm going to ask real quick right here if you guys, anybody on the call has watched any of the other webinars. But if you have, our very first one was about the Caja. Pretty much everything you needed to know, but we're afraid to ask about the Caja. And so I would encourage you to listen to that or watch that to get lots of ins and outs. But could you just give Alfredo just a real quick summary about what the Caja is and about how much it would be for the $1,000 income and how that process works at the end?
Yeah, well, basically, Caja is Social Security, to say it somehow, is basically the public institution who handles actually all the hospitals and clinics here in Costa Rica. This Caja fee is, it has two ways. One is for to actually be able to receive medical care in any hospital or clinic through Costa Rica and all Costa Rica. And the second fee is one that was actually brought recently. I think it was on March 16th. It was starting. That is the IBM. That is a disability, old age, and death. This is some kind of pension. However, well, I have said it in the previous webinar. For me, this is totally nonsense because most of the people are not going to actually receive any benefits from this pension or fee. So, but yeah, right now, approximately for $1,000 fee or pension, the person should be paying around. If I am not wrong, this will actually vary for depending on the exchange of the day. But it should be around from $150 to $200 around, more or less. That's like the usual range that we manage.
Well, and yeah, and it really does depend on, what kind of economy we're in at the time and what the interest rate. And the time we've been coming to Costa Rica, or not interest rate, but the exchange rate's been all over the place. It kind of depends on which side of that you're on. So, well, thanks, Alfredo. And I really would encourage people to go listen to that webinar. And if you have questions, to make sure that, you can email us, you can Facebook message us, you can just about get a hold of someone in Outlier any way, shape, or form to get a question answered. And we do our best to get back to people within 24 hours, unless it's, the weekend or holiday or something like that. I want to thank everyone that was here today and everybody that helped out with the questions. It was really fabulous. I think it was really wonderful to educate everyone on exactly how they can retire to Costa Rica and become a pensionado to be able to, fulfill their dream of moving to Costa Rica. It's really important for expats and those who are in love with Costa Rica, like those of us who have made it our home and second home, to get this kind of information. Next week, we're going to be talking about the rentista category. What the heck is a rentista? And everything there is to know about that, in case there's people here today that are thinking, if I really want to do the pensionado, maybe I want to do the rentista, and then we will also, in a few weeks, have one that's a little bit more in depth about the investor category as well. But what I'd like to, again, is to thank everybody and make sure to look at our YouTube videos. We're hoping that you like the video today, the webinar today. I always keep calling it a video, and hope that you would give us a good rating on this, because we want to be able to bring more and more videos to you and more educational opportunities to everyone about Costa Rica and Panama. So if you would go to our YouTube channel and subscribe, give us a 2 thumbs up on our webinars, and we'll see you next time. Pura Vida, and thanks again so much for coming today.
And just before we actually leave, I have actually a very good news for all the pensionados who are actually seeing, or is that actually starting today, all the people who actually signed with us for this pensionado category, until October 1st, we will be giving free FBI reports for all those U.S. Americans who actually sign up with Outlier for this Pensionado category and path.
That's fabulous, Alfredo. Thanks so much for sharing that with us today. So everyone have a great week, great weekend, and hopefully we'll see you next week, but we will definitely see you on YouTube as you give us a thumbs up. Ciao.